Hello, hello. Sir David the Bard. I'm coming to you out of the Polynesian Cultural Center down here in Hawaii. The wind, the surf, the white sand, and the bikinis. Anyway, I'm hiding behind a great big Tonga man. They're big people. The Danites will never find me. When he moves, I move with him with my computer. Like I'm invisible. Anyway, I just had some thoughts come to me. Revelation, I'm sure. Anyway, you don't know, I used to be an alcoholic counselor. I used to work at Veneta State Hospital in Veneta, Oklahoma. And there was a DUI program there, alcoholics that were, I don't want to say caged, alcoholics that were in prison, yes. And I was one of the counselors there, and I held AA meetings several times a day, 5 days a week. And we went out into the community also for those that were able to be safe in the community. And we attended local AA meetings in Veneta, Oklahoma area. And I learned a lot. I was once addicted to Valium, and I didn't know that you can be addicted to prescription drugs back in those days. You could have as many prescription drugs inside your body as you wanted, have an accident, speed, whatever, they wouldn't get you with a DUI. Today that's changed. Anyway, I've been to a lot of AA meetings, and I've conducted a lot of AA meetings. I'm not an expert in the big book. I've read it, certainly. I know the 12 steps, and after finding that I was addicted, I went through many of the steps to get unaddicted. Today, I'm not addicted to Valium, just sex. and I can't think, you know, I've tried what they call adverse therapy. You know what adverse therapy is for sex? Okay. Adverse therapy is like, if a person is smoking, adverse therapy is you make them smoke all the time. Never have a break. Just light a cigarette, put it in their mouth, and pretty soon they get so disgusted they don't want to smoke anymore. So adverse therapy has been used in psychology over the years, and it has some reflection of success. Now, I've tried adverse therapy with sex. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Just make me have sex more and more and more. Never stop. So anyway, adverse therapy has its strong points and its weak points depending upon what the addiction is. Now, I was just pondering, because I've been in AA, not only as in charge of AA meetings, but also as a client, that you know, we would go around the circle and tell our stories, and it was anonymous, etc., etc. Now, here's what I think is very interesting. Have you ever been to a fast and testimony meeting in the Mormon Church? Have you ever been to an AA meeting? Are they exactly one and the same? I'm going to say no. Are they like 95% of the same? Yes. AA and NA, I went to NA meetings too, Narcotics Anonymous. And one of the things about the groups is that you never criticize anybody else. So if a person gets up in an AA meeting and says, you know, my dad stabbed my mom and the blood went 20 feet, the next guy will stand up and say, my dad stabbed my mom and the blood went 30 feet. There's a little bit of competition to who's the biggest asshole. Yeah, I won a few times. Not all the time. A few times. Anyway, there's a little bit of competition in 12-step programs to be the worst person. That means when you succeed, now that's an amazing story. That's a miracle. You have self-created a miracle with your audience. That, you know, if the blood went 900 feet and now you don't stab people, you're the best one there. You've recovered. Well, look at the testimony meeting. Person gets up and the first thing they do is confess, oh, I'm not a good person. I'm so thankful the Lord took someone like me and did something like this. You know, I've been a criminal my whole life. I've molested every child in this room, but I don't do it anymore. And they go, oh, he is really a spiritual guy. He's moved up. See? See? I never noticed those similarities until today. I was just sitting in a chair, and it came to me that an AA meeting is very similar to a testimony meeting. First of all, they're anonymous. When you get up in an AA meeting, you don't say John Smith. You just say John. Well, in a testimony meeting, many times people don't give their names at all. Sometimes they do, and sometimes in AA they do. But it is anonymous. And you never basically go out of a Mormon testimony meeting, maybe to your wife, but not to anyone else, and say, oh, you know, John Smith there, that was an amazing testimony. And then the nice thing about both meetings is after the meetings are over, people come up to you and they shake your hand. And what they're doing is they're congratulating you that you have come so far from being such an ass. So when you hear a good testimony, you know damn well that person is competing for Ass of the Sunday, Ass of the Week. And so, you know, if you can cry a little bit, snivel a little bit, and you bow your head and say yes 4 or 5 times, in a testimony meeting, you may get, you know, guys holding up cards for 10, 10, 10, and pretty soon after the meeting's over, people will come up to you and pat you on the back and solicit your grief and support that they're helping you to say, gee, if you were that much of a fool, God can save me. So there's some competition there. There's some competition. Now I'll tell you something else about AA and testimony meetings. You don't have to talk. You don't have to talk in an AA meeting. You can sit there and never say a word. What about a fast and testimony meeting of the Mormon Church? Can you just sit there and not say a word? You can. Now, who are the people that get up and actually confront the crowd and give a little speech? Well, the Mormons will say, I was just sitting here and I didn't intend to bear my testimony, but the spirit is so strong, the spirit of guilt, the spirit is so strong, I just had to stand up. Well, in AA, it's the same damn thing. They don't call it the spirit. You may be just sitting there and then suddenly someone says something that reminds you of you and your ass life, and you're motivated, so you get up. So testimony meeting and AA meetings are similar. Now, the 12-step program, interesting. The Big Book and the 12-step program are very similar to some of the principles of the Mormon Church. Confession, that's a big part of AA. Very, very big part of AA. You confess in public what a moron you really are. In the Mormon testimony meeting, you do the same thing. You know, I did this, I did that before I was a member of the church. You know, I drank, 100 bottles of beer on the wall. I smoked everything that had been lit on this earth. And I killed all of my kids. And it goes on and on. Anyway, now I'm going to confess here. Now that I'm in the mood, I'm going to confess. In testimony meeting, I used to snibble. I used to snibble, and I never knew why. I thought it was the spirit. It's guilt. It's guilt that I'm either lying or I'm either lying. And in AA meetings, I never became emotional in AA meetings. But the 12-step program of confession is very important. And then going to make up with people and try to do restitution. Those are identical in AA and the Mormon Church. Now, a lot of you who are Mormons will argue this video saying, well, see, the principles of AA and the principles of the Mormon Church are the same. They are. Let me tell you something else. The recovery rate of alcoholism from active AA members is probably 20 to 25%. 75–85% of the people fall off the wagon and they go back to drinking. Well, take a look at the Mormon Church. How many people don't show up for sacrament meeting? 75%. They're either inactive, or they've resigned, or they're not interested anymore. They fell off the wagon of spirituality. So there's too many similarities here for me. Maybe for you, you go, hey, no big deal. But when you have the same recovery rate, you have the same asshole stories, and everybody competing to be number one, and you're speaking to an audience that doesn't criticize you. Boy, in AA, you would never interrupt a speaker and say, I think you're full of shit. You didn't kill everyone. I'm still here. You wouldn't do that. Well, in a testimony meeting in the Mormon Church, you wouldn't stand up and go, I was on a mission there too, and you're lying. That's not the truth. Oh, man, you wouldn't do that in a Mormon church. So anyway, the impromptu, I don't know if I said that right, speaking, I can't remember this word, spontaneously. If you're speaking spontaneously, it could be AA or it could be a testimony in the Mormon Church. Now, here's something else. One of the cornerstones of AA is sponsorship. Someone who's recovered, supposedly, they take you under their wing and they check on you all the time. And when you feel like drinking or you need some type of support or you're tempted, you call your sponsor and they help you try to get through these unsober or sober times. What's a home teacher? What's the home teaching program of the Mormon Church? Are they your sponsor? Are they supposed to be there all the time for you? Have you ever heard your home teaching people go, if there's anything we can do for you, you go, well, you can paint the house. We don't do that. Say, okay, you are a Mormon and your home teachers are your sponsors. Now, home teachers will call you. They'll visit you at least once a month on the 31st. That's the way we used to do it. Sometimes we just knocked on the door. They weren't there, and we reported, yeah. You know, most of those statistics in Elders Quorum home teaching visits are a lie. You know, I was against that. But many of my honest in your business dealings Mormons, they just wrote it in. When I was in the Elders Quorum presidency, I discovered those lies and wanted to reveal them, but the president, I had to honor and obey. So anyway, the supporting issues of AA and a 12-step program and testimony meetings in the Mormon Church are designed, and their purpose and their results are basically the same. Interesting. Now, who are the people that stand up? This is what's interesting about being a Mormon, which you know I resigned. I didn't get excommunicated. I had a temple recommend when I resigned. No one hurt my feelings. I just read the books. And when Joseph was knocking off all these 14-year-olds, and I had a 14-year-old, whoa, this ain't right. Anyway, where was I? I don't know. And you don't care. those two meetings, the people who speak there are people who are losers. Now, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. We used to have people. I was raised in the Ojai, O-J-A-I ward in the Santa Barbara Stake, now the Ventura Stake in California. Well, we used to have 3 or 4 retarded people. They love bearing their testimony. They're losers. No one ever listens to them. No matter what they say, people just walk away. Well, when you're in an AA meeting or a testimony meeting, it is highly unlikely anyone's going to walk away, and you have a captive audience. My dad loved that. He was such a geek and a nerd and a child molester, as many of you know. He loved standing up in testimony and talking about nothing. Nothing. He had no life. But he thought, 150, 200 people looking at me, and they must be interested. No one's leaving, like they all do at work. Or when I'm at a party and I'm speaking. So anyway, the people who generally get up in these meetings are usually ragtag people that have been losers their whole life, and they're probably going to continue to be losers the rest of their lives. Now the Mormons are going to jump on, well, I know Monson bore his testimony when he was 4 months old and now he's the prophet. Well, see, the Mormons are going to make things up, plus they're going to take aberrations. I'm talking to my audience, which generally understand, because they're of a higher intellect. It's a principle that I'm speaking to. The really shy, good human being person who has good self-esteem usually sits there and doesn't say anything in either meeting. It's always the flamboyant, idiotic, people on drugs. You know, we would get old ladies that get up and they go, and you go, what the hell are they talking about? But we never said that. We go, yes, Sister Smith is very spiritual today. Then you would get in AA meetings, you would get old guys. They've been alcoholics for 70 years. And they go, I know, I'll get my teeth someday. So anyway, I see some similarities there that I don't think anybody else has seen. And now you've seen them. See, when you tune into the Bard, you learn what an ass the Bard is. So anyway, I see a lot of similarities between AA, NA, 12-step programs and the Mormon Church. And I see that most of the people who speak are the biggest losers. And I see that they have a captive audience. They're people that no one in the world would ever listen to unless they were in a captive audience. And that's one reason people stay in AA and they also stay in the Mormon Church, is that any time they want to capture that audience, they just wait for sacrament meeting, or they wait for Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at the YMCA, and there'll be 20, 50, I've seen 100, 150 people in big meetings of AA. So they're captive. They're a captive audience. And the nice thing about it both meetings, you can lie. It's okay to lie. You can make shit up. It's okay to make, there's no fact-finding. No one checks. Said, you know, well, I had my grandmother appear to me 9 times, and she was naked, but she was turned backwards to me so I couldn't see anything. Who the hell is going to hire a detective in the Mormon Church to trace that one down? Well, what did she look like? How old was she? Was she wearing garment? I mean, there's no way to trace that down. And when you get to an AA, you know, oh God, what have I heard? Some of the wild stories I've heard. But, you know, I hit bottom. Now, in AA, this is a very important piece. I hit bottom. I drank my whole life. I never was sober for 97 years. And then finally, I went down a 55-gallon drum of gin, and I hit the bottom. So now he's qualified. He's qualified to speak. So there's no merit. There's no foundation. You can speak in either meeting with no education, no English, no spelling, no ability to communicate, no speaker ability, and you're accepted. And people will do this. In both audiences, people will do this, and the person up there thinks they're agreeing with me. Now, my son Aaron, he's autistic, and he has an IQ of 52, and he loves bearing his testimony. Maybe people feel sorry for him. I don't know. In AA, there were some people that were young there sometimes, and you feel sorry for him, so you give him an extra one of these, and after the meeting, you pat him on the back, and you offer to be their sponsor. So anyway, home teachers, you are the Mormon sponsors of the 12-step program, and the reason that so many Mormons are converted, tragically, from people who are recently divorced, had a sickness, death, disability, have had a terrible problem in their life, they jump into the Mormon church. You know, my wife, who was a returned missionary, Jeannie, down at Disneyland, that's a good mission to have, in Anaheim, she said, Bard, the people who are the easiest to convert to the Mormon church are people who have serious life problems. Well, there you go. The people that go to AA, they have some serious life problems because a lot of them there are ordered there by a judge. By a judge. A judge will say, you're an alcoholic. Go to AA and bring me back 10 signatures of meetings that you went to. Well, do they take minutes and roll at the Mormon church who shows up and who doesn't? And the judge in Israel, he decides who gets the recommends, who doesn't get the recommends. So anyway, if you want to be a good home teacher, be a good sponsor, and spy on your person, report their defects, and let the judge deal with it, the bishop. So anyway, there's my thesis on the Mormon church and the 12-step and AA program. Thanks.